All right, welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking to Stephanie Zgraggen. She's a chiropractor, clinical nutritionist, and creator of the Practice Freedom Accelerator Program for health professionals. She's on the show today. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. I'm excited to be here with you today.
You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
Yeah, so I've had the pleasure of getting to know you the last 5-6 months and know a little bit about your journey, but I really kind of just want you to kind of introduce yourself. And we were talking about all the titles behind your name, but can you give those to our audience?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree from Georgia State University in exercise physiology. From there, I went to chiropractic school and did my doctorate in chiropractic. I also have a master's degree in nutrition, and the dorky kid in me went back to school for more, so I'm also a certified nutrition specialist, a certified clinical nutritionist, and an applied clinical nutritionist. I tell my patients I'm trying to get more letters after my name than in my name. I have a long name, and I'm only 2 letters away, so we'll see what I do next.
Nice. So what got you started in chiropractic and then eventually getting into the nutrition world?
Yeah, the biggest thing with chiropractic was I knew I wanted to help people and wanted to be in the healthcare field. I thought I was going to go to school to be a medical doctor, and then I realized that I didn't like drugs and surgery. So for my exercise physiology degree, I had to have some sort of senior, exploration where we kind of went out and worked with other providers and just had an internship. And one of my friends said, "Why don't we go check out chiropractic?" And I said, "Those quacks? What?" Because I really didn't understand what chiropractic was at that point.
Okay.
And thought I was going to do physical therapy, but went and did my thesis, that internship with some chiropractors. They saw patients crawling in, walking out. They were having a great time. When I asked them if they had to do it all over again, they said, hell yeah. And that was in May. I graduated from school, and by September, I was sitting in chiropractic school. So that was kind of the journey.
So your first experience with chiropractors was you were already in college doing, taking some courses, and then you're like, I got to check this out. And what was the thing about chiropractic that you really loved?
I really loved the fact that it was, I could have my own business, just being very entrepreneurial minded, just as a youngster. And the fact that they were helping people in such a profound way, literally people walking in, crawling in, walking out, just seeing the huge changes I saw, and them having a ball with it too. They really loved what they did. And I wanted to be able to help people on that level.
That's awesome. I mean, I remember my first chiropractic appointment was when I was like 12 years old. So, I landed on my head in football and sprained my neck, and that was my introduction to chiropractic, and that was like a whole nother world. But it's cool to hear stories about how people, a lot of times I hear people in the chiropractic space had a traumatic injuries or stuff like that, and then they become a chiropractor. So knowing you didn't have that, it's cool that you saw, as you saw these people change. Obviously you went to school. What was kind of the initial thing where it's like, wow, this really does work? When did you kind of like get that when you were in school?
I think it was just some of my own experiences I was still playing soccer at the time, so I had soccer injuries and just really saw some profound changes with myself. I think the biggest and probably even more of a spiritual journey for me was when we are in our senior year at the school that I was at. You could go on kind of like a mission trip, so to speak. So you had to apply for it, you got chosen. And for my senior year, I was chosen to go to Morocco for 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
And there were 30 of us students that flew over there. And literally we were on a bus and we would drive to just different towns every single day. And we were literally like rock stars. They just said, American doctors are coming. And everyone's like, yay. And it would just be hundreds and hundreds of people that showed up at wherever we were at. And we literally had to, between the group of us, we didn't get to leave till everyone there that wanted to be adjusted got seen by the doctors, by us. And because of the way that the culture is over there, all the women and children were put with the women and the men were with the men. So we were segregated by gender and by age. And so I got to see women and children, and I had children that had, walking in with limps and other challenges that we would adjust them, and literally like miracles, they got up and ran to their parents, and their parents are crying, and we have pictures with them. For me, that was probably the best chiropractic experience I had, even before I graduated.
Wow.
So I'll never forget those 2 weeks over in Morocco.
Wow, that's amazing. So, you go from that. Did you start your own business after you got out of school, or did you go work for someone else and then eventually start it?
Yes, so the entrepreneurial person in me, I bought my first practice straight out of school. So
wow.
Within graduating, within 2 weeks of graduating, I graduated, moved across the country, got married, went on a honeymoon, went to work, and basically started work all within a 2-week window. So it was a lot going on within a very short amount of time. But I've always been in business for myself. I bought the practice and just right off the gate, just hit the ground running.
So I know a lot of, chiropractors listen to my show and just health professionals, but can you talk a little bit about, because I always talk to people, it's like, how much money did you spend on your education? They're like, oh, a couple 100,000, 300,000. And then I'm like, okay, so how much money have you spent on understanding business skills? They're like less than 1,000. So for somebody like that, what was your introduction to business? Was it that, or did you have somebody else kind of help you with some of your business stuff?
I think I was blessed in the fact that my father, although not in health-related field, he was an engineer and had his own business. So I think I learned just some principles of business and entrepreneurship along the way, and he always encouraged me in that. For me, stepping into that practice before the doctor who sold me the practice, before he left, we did have a kind of like a 4-month overlay where he was there with his wife, and then I was there working. But still, that really doesn't give you a ton. For me, It was just literally hustle. I found every single thing that I could do to have screenings at. We did screenings at schools, at races. I did health talks all over town. You name it. I was hustling. And then I wanted to learn every single aspect of the business. So I sat down with the person that, I guess we inherited the people that worked there. So the person that was a front desk, the person that was a billing. So I would sit down and have them train me and teach me how to do billing. So that's how I learned. They don't teach any of that in school. They don't really teach marketing in school, as you know.
Yeah.
And, so that kind of kept us afloat. And over the course of, I've been in practice 20 years now, over the course of 20 years, I've spent, tens of thousands of dollars on learning how to do marketing for myself, for my business, how to publicly speak professionally, among other skill sets that I've gained over the years.
So if you were to speak about, your first 1 to 3 years, what's the most important thing somebody just out of school who's starting a business in that first 1 to 3 years, what would you say it is beyond chiropractic?
Yeah, I would say probably learning all of the aspects of your business. You don't necessarily have to do them, but I think it's important that you learn them so that let's say if you're a front desk person that's skimming money off the top, how would you know that if you couldn't go in and spot check certain things, spot check the insurance, pull up your accounts receivable to know how much do we have outstanding versus what should we be bringing in? Or is my insurance person even billing? I've talked to some doctors where their insurance people went months without billing. So you don't have that revenue coming in. So just learn every aspect of your business, I think, is important. And I think one of the other things is creating systems. If you can create systems in your practice, then you're able to either, if you want to grow your practice, you can give those systems to someone else to do where you can step back and oversee it. And that's where you can really set the stage for growth and scaling over time.
Awesome. And, for you, if you were to go back, 20 some years, what would you do different if you did anything? What would it be?
The jokester in me says I probably wouldn't have married the guy that I married, that I shared the practice with for a while. but the real answer is probably doing more marketing training while in school. I did a ton of kind of nutrition training, different techniques, applied kinesiology and different chiropractic techniques and biophysics. I think I would have tried to do more business training while in school.
Awesome. That's great advice. So let's talk about, you worked as a chiropractor solely. When did you decide to start integrating nutrition into your practice?
It was pretty much from the get-go, because the practice that I bought they were doing the same chiropractic technique that I wanted to do. And it's chiropractic biophysics. And that one wasn't just the most common technique. It was in the town I wanted to move, which was Charleston, South Carolina. And I wanted to do nutrition already, and they did nutrition, and they used the exact same company that I was already familiar with. Nice. So I could not have asked for a better match in finding, the practice that I bought. I know God led me to that practice so I could buy it because it was everything I was looking for. It was perfect. So, but they didn't really have the systems in place for nutrition in doing it effectively, because they had two people in the office. It was a husband-wife team. We came in as a husband and wife team, but for the first year, I had to do everything myself since my now ex-husband was still in school for a year. So I had to learn very quickly, how do I create systems? How do I get really efficient with my time from running back and forth for doing nutrition patients to chiropractic patients and everything else. So it was difficult. It was hard work, but I obviously figured it out, and here we are today.
Nice. So, when did you, because I know eventually at one point you kind of stopped doing the day-to-day, chiropractic services, and you kind of went more into nutrition. How long did that take you to kind of do that?
The first 10 years of my clinical practice, it was very high volume, seeing lots of patients, having lots of employees. And it was about that time that I split with my now ex-husband, and just felt like that model wasn't serving me anymore. I was very stressed out. My adrenals were not happy with me. And I wanted to create a whole different paradigm and model for myself. So he got the practice, and then I got to completely reinvent myself and reinvent my practice. And that's where Lyman Lotus came from, was out of that change and creating a whole new business model.
I thought for a second you were going to start singing it sounded like a country song you're about to start singing.
I don't know. I guess I could make one up if you want on the fly.
Well, he's like, he got the practice. I got the this. I think there is.
We each got a cat though. So
there you go. A cat. Okay. So you make the transition from, high volume, kind of lots of employees, high stress. And then you make the transition into what after that? And then we'll kind of break into, how you came up with the Practice Freedom Accelerator.
Yeah. From there, I moved to California. So, yep, I was out near you for a hot minute there. Nice. I decided, just going through everything, I wanted to get away. I had an opportunity in California. So it's, as you know, it's really expensive to have commercial property or have a business. And I came out there and was like, that's not going to work. So I literally had a 100% virtual practice for the 2.5 years that I was out there. I did everything online. I worked with my patients online. So of course I wasn't doing chiropractic at that point. It was just all clinical nutrition, functional medicine.
Adjustments.
Yep. I was working out of my apartment, and my entire dining room area was kind of my computer system. I had all my supplements that I would ship out to everyone. And so this was before doing online stuff was cool. And at that point, I knew we can totally have a whole virtual online practice. And then about 2.5 years, I decided it was time to move back to Charleston. So I moved back and actually bought a building to put Lyman Lotus in. And that's when I started creating the model that I have now, with being more of a hybrid practice of having in-person and virtual appointments. And I didn't want to have any employees at that point because I didn't want to get back into the stress that I had with my first practice. So instead, what I wanted to do was give other single entrepreneurs, so typically it's usually women that are in my practices, but single women, female entrepreneurs that wanted to start and or grow their practices, but really not having a space to do that. Because as you know, if you're going to buy a brick and mortar and get all that started, it's a lot for if you're just a one person shop. So my model became giving those women spaces to have their practices. And so therefore I created a multidisciplinary clinic without the stress and overhead of needing to pay everyone and have all the employees and everything else.
That's awesome. So what year did you start your virtual program?
Virtual practice started in 2013. So it's been 10 years now that I've been working virtually. And then it was in 2014 that I came back and bought the building and started Lyman Lotus #1.
Yeah. So if you guys are listening to this, most health professionals, I think outside of the training industry, never really even broke into the online space till about 2020. So Stephanie was definitely kind of like a pioneer of doing this long before anybody else. So what's cool about it is to see you make the transition from high volume, high stress, high practice to kind of doing business on your own terms, to creating kind of a place where other people could do the same thing as you. What is the business model given you now that maybe you didn't have before when you were kind of doing the high volume, high numbers, high stress?
This business model has definitely taken stress off me. It's given me more freedom. I don't have to work as much. I guess my whole nutrition side is more of a concierge style practice where for seeing patients, I work about a day and a half, 2 days a week in that model. And from a financial standpoint, I make more money now, or I take home. I don't make more, but I take home more, which is the big deal. You can make more, but it depends on how much you spend out for everything. But I take home more now than I did with that large practice with all the employees. I've also given people and women a place to have their practices, and they pay me rent. So I have a very steady income, a passive income for the most part, that comes with receiving rent from the practitioners that are in my offices as well. So I felt like that was a great way for me to diversify my income with real estate because I'm getting rent, I'm getting equity in my buildings, and I also get the freedom to practice when I want, travel when I want, and all that good stuff too.
So let's talk a little bit about, creating almost another revenue source that not only, you're getting passive income, but you also own the building. And so you're kind of getting like two wins, right? They're paying your mortgage and, you own the building. So like what has that done for you as far as like a business woman or just a business owner compared to maybe, I don't know if 10 years before you were renting space, but like, what has that done for you as far as like a business owner to know that?
It's great because just as chiropractors or healthcare professionals, most of us are working for ourselves. So we really don't have 401ks for the most part. No one's giving us a pension. We have to do everything ourselves when it comes to our retirement plans. So for me, the amount that I've been able to achieve in both rent and equity in my buildings over the last decade has more than made up for what I would have received in kind of interest rates from a CD or even the stock markets at this point.
Right.
It's definitely been a win-win. The building that I bought 10 years ago, if I sold it today, I would almost triple my money, which is fantastic.
Wow.
So
that's awesome. Yeah. So, kind of knowing that you've, I think we have to kind of mess it up for a while to kind of figure it out. I remember, my first, gym that I started and then opening up another one, and all of a sudden, every month I'm looking at, okay, I got $120,000 in overhead and I got a team of 25. And then you got to wake up to that every morning and be like, oh man, I start over at zero every month, and I remember how stressful that was. And then being able to transition to more of a coaching, business, very low overhead, a lot more freedom. Somebody listening to this that may be a chiropractor and they're like, dude, I don't know how to I don't know how to make that shift. Like, what would you tell them to kind of get to the place where you're at?
I think the biggest thing, kind of just harping on the systems, is having the systems in place where you can start shifting just maybe some things off your plate, maybe being able to take a half day off for yourself so that you can get other things done, or looking at additional services that you could provide. You know, most of us, if we want to double our income, you can either look at it one of a couple ways. You could say, well, I need to double the amount of people I'm seeing, and that would double my income, right? But then if you're trading time for money, as chiropractors, we can only see so many people in an hour. And unless you're going to hire more people, if that's not what we're wanting, then we have to think a bit smarter. For me, I think vertically, where instead of adding more people this way, I stack my services, because then you can give the same services to the same number of people. So if I add more services that they want and are buying anyway, that's how we can then double our income, but still see the same and serve the same number of people. So for me, that happened to be nutrition, clinical nutrition. And then really once I got into the group setting and started teaching programs in my office in groups, that's really when my time for money shifted. Because even if you're doing nutrition one-on-one, yes, you're still on that model of 1-for-1. But when I went to group settings, I literally took the income that I was making on an hourly basis and 10x'd it just by teaching classes. So that's really was a game changer for me in my practice.
That's awesome. So talk to me about, traditional chiropractic is either you adjust more people or you hire an associate. Tell me why that model in 2024 is not a good model to run in your business.
I think it's not as good of a model, especially a lot of those models, unfortunately, are dealing with insurance. We're getting paid less and less. It's taking more time for practices to just make the phone calls and chase the money. And a lot of people aren't wanting to work. I had associates, I had some great associates over the years, but it always seemed like they'd be there for a year and then they thought they knew everything and wanted to just kind of go out on their own, or felt like you weren't paying them enough, even though, your overhead probably went up and your property taxes went up. So there's that disconnect too. I think it can work for some, but for me, I didn't want the stress of that either. So stacking the program, stacking the system, stacking the group classes for me is what really took my practice to the next level.
Okay, so tell me why nutrition, and then somebody listening to this, they may just be straight chiropractor. And why would they add nutrition kind of above everything else? Like, why would you say to do that?
Yeah, everyone's got to eat. What you eat, you become. What's super important. Even for straight chiropractors, even when we looked at what Dee and BJ Palmer said, they were even talking about nutrition back then. And nutrition wasn't even close to being as bad back then,
right,
in the late 1800s as it is today. So it's a huge, huge component. What we put in our body becomes our body. And what I found clinically is the more we can help patients do better eating and do better with detoxification pathways, they feel better, they hold their adjustments better, they lose weight, they sleep better. Just it affects every single aspect of their life. And as true whole body professionals that we are as chiropractors, it makes sense to have this as an outlet. Your patients are looking for these products, they're buying these products. Unfortunately, most of what they're buying is crap off the shelves at the store. And if we can provide them with quality products that we know will work and actually provide results, to me, if we don't do that, we're almost doing our patients a disservice.
Good. I mean, that sounds like a good sales pitch for everybody to get started. All right. So
I get passionate about these things.
Yeah. So, you started out, going just pure volume, and then you started to adjust that and recognize that, like, hey, trading time for money, it's good, but it's not necessarily going to give me the freedom I want. Hence, you get into this virtual kind of hybrid model. You've been doing that for 10, 11 years. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I think I want to teach other health professionals how to do what I've been able to do. So can you talk a little bit about the Practice Freedom Accelerator and, just kind of like how you found it, and then also like who it really helps, as a chiropractor or health professional?
Absolutely. And kind of to back up a smidge from that, I was teaching for Standard Process as one of their national clinical educators for about 13 years. And one of my specialties was teaching detoxification. So they have a 21-day purification program. I would teach doctors about the products, how to put a patient through the protocols, etc. But what I found was that implementation was lacking. Just because the doctor knew the products and the program and kind of how to walk a patient through, they didn't really understand the marketing of it or exactly what to do. And so I started teaching doctors one-on-one what exactly I was doing in my practice. I would give them my PowerPoint presentations and my handouts and my flyers, and literally I'd email them my copy that we would send in the emails to get people to the classes. And over time, that's morphed into, why don't I do this on a bigger scale? Because I can't do this myself. People are getting sicker, and we need more people out there, more chiropractors out there taking this on to really help their patients and their practices. That's kind of where the Practice Freedom Accelerator came from. So what I decided to do was take everything that I use in my own clinical practice and put it into a self-guided 8-module program that doctors can walk through that literally will teach them how to implement a program like a detox program in their office. So whether you are new to nutrition and don't really know anything, or you're a seasoned practitioner but really just maybe don't have the systems in place to market a program like this, this is where I started for you guys. It's unbranded too, so as long as you have a quality brand that you like for a detox program, you can use any brand that you would like for it. And if you don't have a brand or don't know anything, in one of the modules, I walk you through how to choose a quality brand, how to price it, all the things is in the modules.
That's amazing. So what have you, we're in 2024, right? And so you're seeing a lot of, new things coming out. I think the last couple of years, things have really sped up the process. But, what I see a lot of times is a lot of cookie cutter, programs, stuff like that. Why is like what you're doing different than a lot of the other things that are out there when it comes to like detox, nutrition, stuff like that?
Yeah, this one's different because it's made by a chiropractor for chiropractor and for physicians on a doctor level. When my patients, and all the products we're typically using too are doctor grade or therapeutic style programs and products. So I think that gives us the results that we're looking for our patients, and really being able to walk the patients through and see the results has been phenomenal. And then I give all of the data from a doctor's perspective for the patients. As doctors too, when we usually give classes and teach and educate, we're usually educating, we're not selling. So that's important, I think, to learn. So we have a whole module on how to authentically sell your program to your patients, because otherwise we just usually stand up there with a PowerPoint presentation and talk about liver pathways when we really need to talk about the benefits they're going to get from going through a program like this. Yeah.
So kind of one of the things I hear is you've actually experienced it and lived it for the last, 11 years. So what's different is like you're actually in the trenches doing the work. Who doesn't want more freedom in their life, right? And so what better person to teach that than someone who's actually been on both sides of it. And so I think that's really cool that you've been able to, not only recognize like, hey, I don't want this style of practice. This is actually what I want. And then you went out and got it and you created it kind of on your terms. And then now you're helping other health professionals do the same thing. So let's talk a little bit. I know we talked a little bit about Practice Freedom Accelerator, but like your ultimate goal is to teach other practitioners how to implement this into a virtual or, brick and mortar setting. So like, what's the capability of this going forward for a chiropractor to bring in, new business?
The capability for this is huge. Just teaching something like this in a group setting, whether it's within your brick and mortar or teaching it online. Like I said, for myself, it can 10x your hourly income, because you can literally talk to 30, 40, 50 people at one time and be helping them at one time. So I feel like our impact can be much more powerful when we start implementing programs like this. One, the programs work and patients see results, but then when you can put it on this sort of level where you can talk to multiple people at once, you're exponentially like exploding your practice from that perspective as well.
Got it. Awesome. And then in terms of revenue, like on average, like per month, what do you think someone could add to their clinic by putting this in and obviously doing the work?
Yeah, I think that practitioners can be looking at every time they run a class, anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 extra in revenue. I have a practice that just a couple weeks ago sent me their first go round with implementing my system, and they had 74 people register.
Wow.
So when I look at the math, that's an extra $25,000 in revenue. And this is them teaching 4 classes. So 4 hours divided by 25 is, what is that,
100
Jesse? Per hour. Yeah, it's not 100.
Nice. And, I think the bigger thing too is you're learning how to be more efficient with your time. You're getting away from the model of trading time for money, which, even as a trainer, I remember even as a trainer, one-on-one training, going to small group and then large group, and, just seeing what was possible. And then to really see what other people were doing was like, oh my gosh, now you can do this virtual thing to where it's like, you have the ability to really expand your reach. But talk a little bit about, like, typically how long does it take to implement a program like this into somebody's business?
Yeah, I have it set up in modules, and you can basically do 1 module a week if you wanted to. You could go a little bit faster, but I kind of have it designed for 1 module a week. It takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours to go through each module. You're basically getting everything that I've created. So in the marketing section, you'll download my flyers, my PowerPoint presentation, my email swipe files, and make it your own. And you can literally be up and running with your first group class within 6 weeks.
Okay.
And so far, every practice that's gone through my program so far has recouped the cost of the program within their first launch. And this is a rinse and repeat sort of program. Once you've done it once, it gets faster for you to do, and you can literally just keep running it over and over again in your practice. So this is something that you can just make it a turnkey thing for your office.
Okay, awesome. And if somebody's listening to this and they're like, man, I got to get this program into my office, like, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, reach out to me via my website or on social media. My website is Zgraggen.com. Feel free to shoot me an email through that. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Y'all can find me.
And if you guys are listening to this, you can go into the show notes and you can just click on the link. It'll take you directly to DM. We're going to get you to slide into the DMs with Dr. Stephanie.
Excellent.
Or you can email her. So just check the show notes if you're listening to this. But tell me kind of like what your plan is in 2024 with the Practice Freedom Accelerator.
My plan is to add on to more online modules for the doctors, and also to create an evergreen module for them. So that way it's totally hands off. It would be something that their patients could purchase and walk through on their own without the practitioner. So I run all 3 models in my practice. I do group programs, I do online programs, and then I do evergreen programs as well. So that's the pathway that I'm looking forward with them.
That's awesome. Year. Well, if you guys are looking, you're a health professional and you're looking to bring in a detox program that's going to help you increase your revenue by an additional $5,000 to $25,000 a month, reach out to Dr. Stephanie. She definitely has got this figured out. And not only that, she's been doing it the last 11 years, which I don't know anybody else doing detox programs, protocols, and teaching others how to do this and actually make money at it. Stephanie, I want to thank you for being on the show today. Any last word for a health professional that might be listening to this and they're wondering, like, hey, should I adjust more people? Should I get an associate, or should I just open up another vertical of revenue? What would you say to them?
Work smarter, not harder. Go vertically and take the pressure off yourself, create that freedom, because that's going to be the legacy that we leave too. We can work longer and have a lasting legacy when we create a practice like this.
Cool. Great advice. All right. Well, thanks so much for being on today. Can't wait to see what you do at the Practice Freedom Accelerator. If you guys are looking to connect with more like-minded people, you can always check out the Habit-Based Lifestyle and Business Secrets group on Facebook, where we break down your life and business habits and get you to begin living a habit-based lifestyle. Until next episode, have a great day.
You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.